All right, guys. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you all had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I certainly did. We had another good weekend. Another great weekend. Not a perfect weekend. We have a lot of injuries still, but key players coming back has really been the story of this last week or two, ever since that Jamaica camp. Particularly having Balogun and Gio Reyna back. Neither of them is at full fitness. And I think that's clear to see when they're playing, right? They're going to have to develop a rhythm, but they have another, 3 weeks or so to get back into a rhythm before the winter break. And then hopefully in the second half of the season is where we will see more of them. Positive for Gio is that he's been getting more every game that he's played in every game since he's been back, right? And he played 30 minutes in the Champions League in midweek. Against Bayern, I didn't really expect him to come on because they were up 1-0 for most of that game. And Gio is not a defensive sub, right? He's an attacking sub. So I didn't really expect them to bring him on with that sort of very, narrow margin. And then when Bayern equalized late in the week, they did eventually bring him on, but he had 3 minutes to do nothing. So the fact that he is playing in every game is already better than the beginning of the season when he was available and he only played, I think, 10 minutes in one game. So he needs to get his rhythm back, and you can see it. He's still a little hesitant, Gio, to take on players, right, to drive at players. And I hope that doesn't last too long, because sometimes players, when they come back from injury, particularly if they've had multiple injuries, they have a little bit of the fear, a little bit of that, like, I don't want to get injured again. It affects how they goes into challenges. It affects how they, you have to play. You can't play scared of injury. And I'm not saying he is. But in the minutes that I've seen him since he comes back, he looks just that tad bit hesitant to go in for it. And you want to get in that Dortmund lineup, Gio, you're going to have to do more than that. So hopefully, it's a matter of building rhythm and getting back into it. Nuri Sahin had a lot of praise for him. He said he's been training really well. That's great. In the games is where it matters, and that's where he's going to earn more minutes. So hopefully that can come. Balogun still looks rusty. His first touch is off. His, passing range is, it's not there with Balogun yet. And that's okay. It sucks because he was really getting into a rhythm before, we got into the international break. Before he dislocated his shoulder, he was really getting into a rhythm. He had 3 goals in 3 games, really nice goals. And we were starting to see the old Balogun again. But the good thing is Pepi's still doing very, very well. So if Balogun's not, look, they have until March, right? The next camp is not until March. Everybody has time to get fit, to get healthy. But let's dive into it. Before we do, guys, smash that like button if you haven't already. How was everyone's Thanksgiving? What did you guys do? Anybody go home, fly? Anybody travel over Thanksgiving? It's always fascinating to me that people travel home for Thanksgiving because it's such a short window and it's so crowded and so crazy with everybody trying to go home, especially airports and flights. Oh, man. I don't mind doing that for Christmas, but for Thanksgiving, that's rough. Let's see. Judgmental Deity says, I love Maloney, think he's a great player, but neither Greg nor Poch give him a shot, so it's like he doesn't even exist. Here's the problem for Maloney, right? He plays in a position where we have a lot of coverage. And you don't, I would have brought Maloney into the last camp. You don't really need 2 Tyler Adams. You've got Tyler Adams, you've got Johnny, you've got Tessman, Musa can play there. I still agree with you that he deserves a shot. At some point, definitely. But it is also difficult with the amount of coverage that we have in this position. Joshua 99 Skills says, I went to LA. Nice. Where did you come from, Josh? Greg Vanny, I watched USMNT versus England. Where was that? Was that in London? Where did they play that? I know it's late, but happy Thanksgiving weekend, Pete. Thank you, Mr. Mister. Intro needs some eagle screeches, says Joseph. Okay, Javier Pauig. Okay, but why does Tack want to see Tessman play at center back? Why does he not provide the same energy for Maloney, who has actually played the center back? There's a difference between Maloney and Tessman. Tessman is much better on the ball than Maloney is. Much better on the ball. Where I think Tessman lacks is his acceleration, particularly on the turn, is not great. But although I still think we can, we could try Maloney at center back as well. I don't disagree with that. But I think that's where Tack is coming from. And I agree with him, by the way. I would love to see Lyon try that. Because because I think he has a higher ceiling as a center back than he does as a defensive midfielder. And considering our lack of depth in that option, I think it could be a good option. But I think the same thing for Maloney. Maloney's not as good on the ball as Tessman is, and so that might hamper him. But you know what? We have Miles Robinson on the team, who's also not good on the ball. Will you be going to Carson to see Galaxy play the Red Bulls? So, Javier, I looked at tickets today, and the cheapest tickets are like over $400. And I'm sorry, for two teams I don't care about. I can't pay that kind of money to watch two teams that I don't care about. Now, look, if the Chicago Fire were in MLS Cup, that might be a different story. But for LA versus New York, I don't care enough to pay that kind of money. All right, before we get into it today, Believe, where the game starts. You all know what I'm talking about. Bet Online, sponsor of the channel. Let's dive right into the top 10. Gianluca Busio. Now, look, on another week, Gianluca Busio probably wouldn't have made the top 10. But it was a slower week than some other weeks. The injuries, notwithstanding. And they did lose this game, Venezia, 3-0 to Bologna. But among the players that, Venezia fielded, Busio was one of the more impressive ones. And what I've been noticing about Busio, watching him play for Venezia, is that he is so much better outside of that double pivot when they let him roam higher up the field and let him play more as a creator. And I think the reason that is so often in that double pivot, you're a bit risk averse. You can't take too many risks because if you cough up the ball in that part of the field, you're putting yourself in real danger. And so there's very little room for improvisation and creativity. And so he tends to play it quite safe and pretty standard when he's playing in that double pivot. But there are times, and he did this a fair bit against Bologna, where he would drift particularly into the channel and his little 1-2 passes, his little through balls, he would improvise a little bit more. You started to see a little bit of the creativity, right? That, we know Gianluca Busio can provide when you give him a little bit more freedom. And I hope that they can do that. Now, he isn't playing for a very good team, and Venezia could get relegated. I'd say at this point, likely to get relegated again this season, but maybe he could make a move somewhere else that suits his skill set a little bit better, because Venezia are essentially brawling for their life. And while I think that does benefit him to a degree because it helps him to shore up his defensive game, I don't know if we're going to see the full scope of what a guy like Gianluca Busio can provide at Venezia. But for now, he needs to keep trying, keep improving, whether they play him in the double pivot, whether they play him a little higher up the field, or whether they give him license to roam. He can still improve on both sides of the ball. But he did make the top 10. He played 90 minutes, created one chance, drew 4 fouls. That's the other thing. Every time he would get the ball in a promising position, they just knocked him over, Bologna. And I think they had identified him as one of their more creative players. And they understood that on a team that lacks creativity, if you foul their most creative player, it really hampers their ability to build out, especially when they lack real quality in this team. Won 4 out of 7 ground duels and 2 out of 3 aerial duels. Javier with a great question here. And they wonder why the MLS is not catching fire in America. Cost issue is a driving force behind why there is not a lot of fan support. I think that's definitely part of it, cost issue. But, it is MLS Cup. Most MLS games don't cost that much. And, playing in small stadiums allows them to drive up the cost, right? Even Carson's not even a small stadium by MLS standards. It's actually one of the larger ones. It's 27,000 seater, right? Where the Galaxy play. But imagine if you played this game at SoFi. Maybe you could get 40,000 people to show up to this game and have cheaper tickets. Why not? Why couldn't we do that? Galaxy fans will say, well, it's not fair. We should be at home. And I understand that too. But, this is why when MLS builds new stadiums, they always build them 20 to 25K. Have you noticed? Because the guys who, were the owners, whoever they are, they would rather charge more to diehard fans than bring new fans into the fold. It's the same with the Apple deal, right? Nobody is paying $15 a month for Apple Plus, whatever it's called, right? MLS, soccer, watch pass, Apple, FC, TV, etc., unless they are a diehard MLS fan. And you're not getting new guys to come in, pay that, right? So there are lots of issues. The lack of quality is a big issue that hurts MLS. The lack of relevance in a sports market is hurting them. Not having, a real, I don't want to say a real league, but not having promotion relegation hurts them. There's lots of reasons why it hurts them, but certainly the cost effective is one of them. All right, let us continue. John Tolkin, speaking of MLS, Orlando City was knocked out in the conference final, the Eastern Conference final, by New York Red Bulls. And it was none other than Jonathan Tolkin. I don't think his name is Jonathan. His name is John, who got the assist on the solo goal that took the Red Bulls to MLS Cup for the first time since, was it 2013? No, 2013 was not the Red Bulls. When was the last time the Red Bulls made MLS Cup? Have they ever made MLS Cup? Somebody check on that. But it was a nice free kick goal. 1 out of 7 accurate crosses, so his crossing is still not great. 1 out of 3 ground duels won, 2 out of 3 aerial duels won, 5 clearances and 1 interceptions. Overall, it was a decent performance, but obviously the assist on this goal to Andre Reyes, you're going to get the winning assist, the winning goal that sends the Red Bulls into MLS Cup. And for the first time, I think ever, we have a New York versus LA MLS Cup matchup, which I'm sure Don Garber is salivating at, although he would prefer Miami. I think Garber, if it was up to Garber, he would want an LA team versus Miami. They made it once as Western Conference champions. Got it. Wait, what? New York made it as Western Conference. What are you saying, Rascaldi? Are you trolling? Or are you serious? Tolkin versus Nini Brown for backup left back spot, says Javier. Yeah, I don't know if he's actually eligible anymore, guys. I've heard, I know he's been playing for Germany's under 21s, and some people are saying he's not eligible. I have to do some research on that. Nathaniel Brown, not John Tolkin. John Tolkin is obviously eligible. Greg Vanny says Red Bulls haven't been in the final since 2008. All right, so almost 20 years. And they say we have no history. Paxton Aaronson. Now, FC Utrecht did lose the game this morning to PSV Eindhoven 5-2. But I actually think Paxton Aaronson, he was the best American on the field. He played 90 minutes, had 2 out of 4 successful dribbles, 2 out of 2 accurate long balls, 8 out of 11 tackles, 9 recoveries, 14 out of 19 ground duels, which was a match high, and drew 1 foul. Now, he's not playing as a 10, a creative 10 so much for Utrecht. He's playing more as in a double pivot with some license to roam. I thought he was really good on both sides of the ball, even though he didn't get a goal contribution as credit. But he was, and again, I'm not just saying this because of the stats. Actually watching the game, you could see the quality that he brought to the team. Now, losing, they're now 8 points behind PSV Eindhoven. That game was almost the last. It's not over, but 8 points clear with, just over half of the season to go. I can't see PSV Eindhoven blowing this one. But there's Champions League spots to fight for, right? They can still try to get that second Champions League spot. Not that, Paxton is necessarily going to be there for it. He'll probably be back with Frankfurt next year, although you never know. We'll see. Austin Trusty of Celtic FC played 90 minutes versus Club Brugge in the Champions League in midweek. Now, his central defensive partner, Cameron Carter-Vickers, may have scored an own goal, but Trusty was very, very reliable in that game. And not just reliable, but he completed 118 out of 122 passes, which is one of the benefits of being at Celtic, right? You'll have a lot of the ball. Now, usually that's true in the Scottish League, but it was also true against Club Brugge in the Champions League. 17 passes into the final third, 2 out of 4 accurate long balls, 3 clearances, 2 headed clearances, 2 interceptions, 3 recoveries, 3 out of 5 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 aerial duels won, and 2 fouls drawn. They ended up drawing this game 1-1 with Club Brugge, and then he was benched on the weekend. I think it was more rotational than benched, so that Liam Scales and Cameron Carter-Vickers could play. But it was a really good midweek performance. And I think Celtic probably will at least make the playoffs of the Champions League, which means 2 more games for guys like Trusty and Celtic at a good level, because Scottish League just ain't it. Mark McKenzie of Toulouse also had a really good game in their 2-0 win, in Toulouse's 2-0 win over Auxerre. Played 90 minutes, got a clean sheet, had 1 chance created, 6 out of 6 accurate long balls, 4 passes into the final third, 1 block, 2 clearances, 1 interception, and 10 recoveries. He's playing in a back 3, so he is really defending the channel a bit more than he would, with the national team, where he plays in a back 2 formation, or at least has so far under Pochettino. And it is a little bit of a different story. And at times, you can see him very much pushing left and almost playing as a faux left back. But reality is, when Joe Scally is on the team, there are times where Pochettino has us playing that way too. Tim Ream will almost play as a faux left back, and Mark McKenzie will scoot more to the middle. Now, we don't know what it's going to look like in March, right? Because, Chris Richards, who, by the way, did not start the last 2 games for Crystal Palace. So he has work to do to get back into that lineup. But Toulouse, the jump from Belgium to France, it's a jump. It's not a huge jump in the sense that, the Eredivisie to the Premier League is a big jump, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I was concerned about McKenzie, because even when he did play for Genk in the Belgian Eredivisie, there were mistakes. There were times that made you question if this guy has it in him to be a high ceiling center back, and he still has weaknesses. He isn't the greatest on the turn, in transition defensively, and he doesn't always win aerial balls, mostly because of his height. But other than that, he has been pretty solid in that back 3 formation for Toulouse, and they're solidly in mid-table now. Let's see how they continue to do over the course of the season. Remember, he's just 25 for a center back, so he hasn't even hit his prime yet. Matthew saying, does anyone like the new Champions League format? I didn't like the new Champions League format when it came out, but it's kind of growing on me now. I'm kind of enjoying the one big table where everybody can, still has a chance going all the way to the last game. I'm kind of digging it. I really am. I know the motivation behind it was sort of greedy for the big clubs, and that was one of the reasons I didn't hate it. But as a viewer, I'm actually kind of liking it. I really do. Pepi Stan 9 says, I like it. I think the last week could be dramatic. I do also like the playoff option, where even if you're not in the top 12, you still have a playoff option that, you can still get in that way. It sort of keeps hope alive until the last game. Christy Hyman, thank you for the super chat. Albert says, Pete, how was Booth? Booth was poor. He came on as a substitute for Utrecht. He was not good. Booth is a sad story, because he keeps, for a while, it was like, oh my God, Booth is this new prospect and he's playing well, and then he would get injured, right? And he's one of those guys that he would get injured and then come back and take him weeks or months to find his form. And he finally finds his form again, and right as he does, injured again. So he's going to have to do better than that, in my opinion. I mean, not in my opinion, everyone's opinion, really. Tyler Adams completed his first 90 minutes for Bournemouth versus Wolves, played 90 minutes, 3 out of 3 tackles won, 3 clearances, 4 interceptions, 4 recoveries. They ended up winning this game 4-2, by the way. He was dribbled past twice, 4 recoveries, 3 out of 9 ground duels won, 2 out of 2 aerial duels won, and 4 fouls committed. So it wasn't the perfect game from Adams, but just seeing him go 90 minutes in the Premier League, and playing as, the last time I think we saw him playing 90 minutes was almost a year ago. So something to keep in mind. But good to see him back. Good to see him playing well, especially now with Johnny injured. We're all looking at March, right? That is the, Nations League semifinal game against Panama. And the more guys we have healthy, the better. Because even if we get past Panama, I think the final is going to be USA-Canada. I think the final is going to be USA-Canada. I think Canada's gotten better, especially now that their center backs have moved to France. You've got, obviously, Jesse Marsh, who's a good coach for what they do. And I think that's going to be a fun game. I think that's what the final is going to look like. I think Tyler will be quite crucial in that. Anthony Robinson captained Fulham for the first time in their 1-1 draw with Tottenham Hotspur. Played 90 minutes, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, 4 out of 6 accurate long balls, 9 passes into the final third, 1 out of 1 tackles won, 5 clearances, 4 out of 7 ground duels won, and 1 foul drawn. Fulham loves American captains. Tim Ream was their captain for a while. Brian McBride has captained them in the past. I'm trying to remember if Clint Dempsey ever wore the captain's armband for them. I don't remember if he did. I think he did a couple of times at least. But yeah, I mean, look, steady performance from Antonee Robinson in the Premier League, consistent, right? That's the good thing about Antonee, like, at least for club and to a degree for country as well. His performances as he enters his prime, because he's 27 now, right? And this is, I think, something we can look forward to with a lot of our guys. As they enter their prime, you're going to see less deviation, in performance. Like less like, oh my God, what an incredible performance, but also less, what, that was a shit game. Like more steady performances within the level that they find themselves at, whatever that level is. Now, Christian Pulisic entering his prime soon seems to be finding a level that is very, very high. And if he can keep that up for a consistent period of time, which it's been, a season and a half now, if he can keep it up for, the rest of the season, then I think we'll probably say that's the new norm for Christian Pulisic. And we will consistently expect 20 to 25 goal contributions per season. But that's what we're seeing from Antonee Robinson now. Now we still need to find a backup left back for him. Christopher Lund Hansen, by the way, for all the hype around this player, is not even starting in Serie B. Okay. And he's 22. He's not 17 or 18. Okay. Serie B, in terms of quality, is probably about MLS level. And he's not even starting. So I just think we need to pump the brakes. And I think I've said this before on Lund, Christopher Lund. No matter how much he smiles. And by the way, you can thank Greg Berhalter for calling up Christopher Lund instead of Nathaniel Brown, because Nathaniel Brown looks to be a much better left back at this point, whereas Lund is not even starting in Serie B. Like, I'm no fan of John Tolkin, but I'd rather have John Tolkin at this point than Christopher Lund. I'd probably prefer Wiley as well, a guy who at least when he's healthy is starting in the French league, right? So yeah, we still haven't found a good left back. I mean, I'm curious to see what happens to Tolkin this winter. Hopefully in December he takes off to the Bundesliga or the Eredivisie at least to continue developing as a player. Because I think it's time. He's 22 now. He's been in MLS for 4.5 years and certainly has improved as a player, but still I think some fundamentals make me wonder how high his ceiling is. But we don't need him to be a Jedi level necessarily. I mean, would that be nice? Sure. What we kind of need, though, is a reliable backup, even if he becomes a Joe Scally, which I think is a different profile to Joe Scally. But if he can even become a PSV Eindhoven starter, which he could certainly do, I think, or perhaps Bundesliga starter down the line, that would be fine for our backup left back, right? So and also competition. We need people to keep pushing Antonee Robinson, which I don't think Tolkin is at his level, but he's also 5 years younger, right? I mean, Antonee Robinson 5 years ago was certainly not the player he is now. And, you could draw a comparison to a player, because I think that Tolkin has technical limitations. But you know what? So does Robinson. He's found a club that has figured out how to use him effectively. He's improved technically, but he's never going to be a really smooth on the ball left back. So we'll see, going forward what that looks like. But I think for Tolkin, the next step needs to be get out of MLS and go to Europe, hopefully this January. Ricardo Pepi, after scoring a hat trick last week or the week before, in midweek, did not start against Shakhtar Donetsk because geriatric, and I use that word tongue-in-cheek, so don't get offended, geriatric Luke de Jong came back from injury and started. Unfortunately, de Jong did not have the greatest of performances, and they were trailing 2 goals down, and Pepi came on in the second half. Now, his fellow hero, Malik Tillman, got the 2 opening goals to equalize, but in the dying minutes, Ricardo Pepi poached a winner for the second season in a row, saving PSV Eindhoven's Champions League chances, right? Saving them, which, wow, it looks like they still have a good chance to make the playoffs. All right. And so to come on and score that goal as their top scorer, as their, he has significantly higher goal contributions per minute than Luuk de Jong does. I thought maybe they would let him play. This was the game on the weekend where I thought, he could play this game. He could start this game against Utrecht, and that would be a real sign of, the handing of the baton from de Jong to Pepi. He didn't. De Jong played. He did not score or assist any of the goals. And Pepi got the last, I think, 13 minutes. He replaced de Jong in the 77th minute. He didn't get a ton of service. Now, some people are saying, oh, he should go. He should leave in January. I'll say pump the brakes. Like, he's already gotten significantly more. He's already gotten significantly more minutes this season than he did last season, number one. Number two, de Jong is clearly on a decline this season, right? Number three, I think it's, by the summer, if it's not very clear that Pepi is going to be the starter next season, then sure, look at your options. But I think the Eredivisie is good for Pepi for right now. Remember, he still hasn't turned 22 yet, and he is on the verge of becoming the starting striker for the best team in the league. I think that Ricardo Pepi, by the spring, I said this on Twitter, but I'll say it again. By the spring, I think he will be the starter. I do. I think by mid-March, Ricardo Pepi will be the starter for PSV Eindhoven. And then I think next season, either one of three things will happen. Either de Jong will have to accept being the backup, or de Jong will leave and Pepi will be the starter. But next season, if he stays, I think he will be the clear starter. Because I just think de Jong's definitely on the decline. And it's been a stark decline from last season. And not only is de Jong on a decline, but Pepi has improved. Pepi's gotten better as well. I would say Pepi, stay here until 2026. And then after 2026, get your big move. He'll still only be 23. Think about that. Christian Pulisic continues to add goal tallies or goal contributions to his excellent season for Milan against Slovan Bratislava. Played 74 minutes, scored one nice goal, 2 chances created, 1 out of 4 successful dribbles, 4 out of 8 ground duels won, and 3 fouls drawn. And then against Empoli, he played 90 minutes, got 1 assist, a header assist, which is unusual for Pulisic, created 4 chances, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, 8 out of 10 ground duels won, and 4 fouls drawn. So that's quite interesting. It's almost become the norm for Christian Pulisic now, right? We're used to it. Yeah, Christian Pulisic gets another goal, gets another assist, but we have never had a player, guys. And I know there are some people who worship, guys, and certainly Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, all of these guys. They are, a huge part of our past and have obviously helped to pave the way for the future. But none of them were Christian Pulisic. They were not. Dempsey in his prime maybe was close to Christian Pulisic's level, but that was 2 years when he was 29 and 30. Okay. And none of them have accomplished what Christian Pulisic has at the club level. None of them ever played for a Chelsea or a Dortmund or a Milan or won a Champions League or, had multiple seasons where they had more than 20 goal contributions in a top 5 league, which Pulisic has now. This is his 3rd season of very likely going to be above 20 goal contributions. So club-wise, he's already done everything. Country-wise, TBD, right? There's still 2 more World Cups for him to participate in, potentially an Olympics. We'll see. All he has to do is make a quarterfinal to match their achievements, because I think he is already going to destroy the national team goal record of 57 goals that is currently jointly held by Dempsey and Donovan. But as a player, as a technical player, as a profile, he was better than both Dempsey and Donovan already, and we haven't even seen him in his prime yet. This was the goal against Slovan Bratislava. This will be on, the Patreon, the full goal. After a very solo run, he slotted it into the bottom of the net to give Milan the lead in the 21st minute. And then this was a very unusual assist for Christian Pulisic. It didn't go down as an assist initially because it looked like it came off the defender. But when you watch the replay, he did actually get his head to it. It looped up in the air, and then Morata was the one who finished it with a really, really nice volley and to help Milan keep pressure on the top four in Serie A. But Christian Pulisic with 2 contributions for the weekend. Last, but certainly not least, speaking of, dramatic late winners, that which Ricardo Pepi's, but he was building on 2 amazing goals by Malik Tillman against Shakhtar Donetsk. It was Reinders who finished it. Sorry, not Morata. That's right. Jaden, thank you. 2 goals, 7 chances created, 1 out of 1 successful dribbles, 7 out of 10 ground duels won, 1 foul drawn, 3 out of 4 aerial duels won. This was obviously the second goal, which, was definitely the more beautiful of the 2. A gorgeous, gorgeous knuckling ball from outside the box into the top corner, completely and utterly bamboozling the keeper. But what I think that might be the most beautiful Champions League goal an American has ever scored. Yes, I know Pulisic had a nice solo run against Real Madrid, and obviously the circumstances in that goal were more dramatic because of, it's Real Madrid, not Shakhtar Donetsk. And, it was also the semifinal. But in terms of the goals itself, I think this was a better goal. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful goal for Malik Tillman. The other one was a very nicely worked free kick. He curled it around this player and on target. And the goalkeeper, got behind it, but it had already crossed the line. So it counted as a goal. So a very easy number 1 for Malik Tillman. I don't know why it says number 7. It's not. It's supposed to say number 1, guys. But you found the Where's Waldo in the PowerPoint. Here's the thing about Malik Tillman. And this is going to be always the question mark against him until he shows otherwise. It's going to be national team performances. Until he starts doing that for the national team, it's not going to generate the same level of excitement, as it does for PSV. And, people say, give him time. And certainly he will continue to get time because his club performances will still give him opportunities to get called in. But at some point, it's like you have to do it for the national team because people care about Malik because he's because we're USMNT fans, right? Certainly the PSV fans is a different story, but we care about him because we're USMNT fans. So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what you do for your club if you end up stinking it up for your country. And he's had 600-700 minutes now, so he's not had a huge amount of time, but it's also not a small amount of time either. He has to start delivering. And I'll argue that he has March, he has the Nations League, and probably the Gold Cup in the summer to start putting in the kind of performances that we know he can deliver. And if he doesn't do it, if he continues to stink it up till next summer, then certainly the question is going to be, should he even be on the national team? Because what's the point in bringing him here if he stinks it up so often, right? Hopefully he puts it all together. Hopefully he does, because we do need a player of his quality, particularly with Gio Reyna's injury history and Brendan Aaronson being a cardio merchant. We don't have a good backup 10 that we can rely on. So Tillman needs to grab it. He needs to say, no, that's mine, So hopefully he does. There's a lot of rumors about Tillman now, like the Premier League. And look, the gap, he's doing very well in the Eredivisie, and that's great. But the gap from the Eredivisie to the Premier League is a big one, number 1. And I just don't think, even if you look at a guy like Ryan Gravenberch going from Ajax to Bayern and not really being able to make it at Bayern, it took some time for him. You have to be careful about making a jump in level so big that you're not ready for it. So that's something I think he needs to be very wary of. The second thing is I don't think Tillman's languid style would fit very well in the Premier League. I think he is a bit more of a languid player. I think that probably Bundesliga, a mid-table Bundesliga club would be best for Tillman. And then if he can handle that level for 2-3 years, great. But I also don't think he should go anywhere in January. I think he should see out the season with PSV Eindhoven, continue to grow, and then in the summer, get that big move. Now, that big move could just be to a top 5 league, French league or the Bundesliga, right? Now, PSV have the rights. This is the thing. PSV have the rights to sign him, but Bayern still has a buyback clause. So what Bayern could potentially do is Bayern could buy him back and then send him out on loan at a higher level to, I don't know, a Stuttgart or a Gladbach or a Hoffenheim or potentially to Serie A, as Shifaro Alfonso was saying. And then see how he does. And then maybe in 2 years, he's ready for Bayern. But I still think the jump from PSV to Bayern is a big jump, and so I don't think he should make that big of a jump yet. Now, look, Ernie Stewart may want to keep him and say, look, we want to keep you. I don't think they're going to be able to. I think if Bayern is smart, they pay the buyback clause to PSV and they bring him. And then they send him out on loan. They loan him out somewhere to mid-table Bundesliga and see how he does. That would also open the door for PSV to make the correct move, in my opinion, which would be to go get Diego Luna from MLS. Get Diego Luna and get John Tolkin. You bring those two in, you could have a very, very interesting team. Now, Diego Luna is not Malik Tillman, but I think there were some rumors about PSV trying to get Cade Cowell. And I actually think that would be a terrible fit for Cade Cowell, because Cade Cowell is a transition merchant. Well, first of all, he's not a very good player. Second of all, he is more of a transition. If there's anything where he can be effective, it's in transition. And that's when you give him lots of space to run into at full speed. PSV Eindhoven very rarely has that playing in, the Eredivisie, especially where teams bunker against them. And Cade Cowell is not the type of guy that you want to help break down a bunker, whereas Diego Luna is. And I think Diego Luna needs to go to a proper development environment, because I don't think RSL is that. So if I were them, I would take the money from Tillman and use it on a Diego Luna, right? Something like that. That would be my preferred option, not Cade Cowell. Go get Diego Luna. That's a guy who I think could be more interesting for them, or even like a Paxton Aaronson. Well, I think Paxton Aaronson might be ready for the Bundesliga next year. I think him and Tillman should be in the Bundesliga next year. Aaronson back to Frankfurt, and potentially another mid-table club for Malik. All right, guys. Luna got in shape. Good to know. I mean, I agree he's made more talented. Am I going to grow out the beard? No, I can't. Mostly because of my job, acting. I usually play, more clean-cut characters. So if I grow the beard, then there goes a fair portion of my acting jobs would go out the window. So no. Also, I can't grow out a full beard. I can grow out a full goatee, but the sides are very patchy. And it just doesn't look good, the sides of the beard. So as much as I wish I could, because I'd love to do it on vacation or holiday or something, but it just never looks good. It always looks patchy and kind of homeless. So it's not an attractive thing. Derek Rishi says, but the beard could open up new roles. Yeah, I've heard that from people multiple times. But here's the thing about Hollywood, is that Hollywood is very typecast. The beard is more like the bad boy type roles, or the homeless guy, or like the hitter. And I don't look enough like those things to beat out all the competition from guys who really look like those things. Like, it might move me further along the spectrum to kind of looking like that. And maybe somebody's going to be like, you could kind of see it. But there are, 4,000 guys that like nail the role or nail the look. And so I'm just going to be stuck between two worlds, where I'm not getting the roles I usually do, but then I'm also not getting the roles that, growing a beard out would necessitate. Derek Rishi says, professor. I could probably play a professor without a beard, though. Santa Claus, not so much. I'd have to eat a lot more Twinkies for that. Okay, guys. Great weekend. Tack should be back. He's in Japan, but I don't think he's doing the Americans Abroad this weekend, but possibly the next weekend he'll be back. Have a great rest of your weekend, all. Derek and Rishi doing Monday night show 8:15 Eastern time, right, Derek? Is it 8:15 or 8? So don't forget to go check them out. Let's see. Tak went to Soapland. He went to Japan with his girlfriend, or his wife. 8:15. So 8:15 Monday. 8:15 Monday, the straight red card. Go subscribe and like and watch so we can continue to grow the game and reward content creators who do good work. Unlike some who do not. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one and get ready for the outro to blow up your eardrums again.